Joe, where are you? Okay, you're innocent. He says he's innocent. I don't know, Joe. I've known you for quite a while, and you haven't been innocent since I've known you. I don't have any money. Joe, no, I don't have any money. Are you kidding me? You come to a poet for money? Just give me your number fast. What is it? Where are you? Okay. I'll call you. No! Overdue library fines. I bought this in Escondido. Noir cool. We're going to talk about noir cool. And by cool, I don't mean nice shoes or a really cool fedora. I don't care what anybody's wearing. What interests me is that cool that people show under pressure, the cool that some of these characters show when they're facing life and death situations. They're maybe gonna die, but they're gonna die going out with a great line. And you gotta die sometime, you know. That's a good way to go out. And my favorite one of all is in The Big Sleep, and it's Humphrey Bogart. It's 1946. It's Howard Hawks, director. Faulkner did some work on the script too, you know. So Humphrey Bogart, he's mixed up with all these gunzels, all these thugs and all these gangsters and hoods and things like that. So he's faced a gun once before, but you never know when the gun you face is going to be the last one you ever see. So he opens a door, and a little gunzel, little hood with a gun comes through, pointed right at him. And he says, and this is my favorite example of noir cool, he goes, so many guns around town and so few brains. And you know what? It is true today as it was in 1946. So many guns around town, so few brains. So that's noir cool to me. Somebody else who's got a little bit of that. Well, there's a few figures. Philip Marlowe, sure, he's got it in Aces and Spades. But also my other favorite character in literature, the person I love most of all, except for, well, ties with Philip Marlowe. So Hamlet, right? Those are the two men that I love the most. Well, I never met a man who was like Hamlet. I definitely never met a man who was like Philip Marlowe. So that's why I never got married, in case anybody wants to know. So, but Hamlet's in another situation. He's got to have a duel with Laertes, a sword duel, right? It started out, and by the way, don't get all upset because I'm talking about Hamlet. I'm going to tie it in, but even if I wasn't going to tie it in, I'd talk about it anyway because I just love Hamlet. One of the reasons I never got married. So he has to have a duel with Laertes. He knows that Laertes is the best swordsman in the whole court. He is second best. Laertes is best. So Hamlet just practices until he's the best. And he knows that he can beat Laertes. But he has this feeling, it's a setup. We're going to see this later in a movie called Out of the Past. He's not the only person in literature who gets set up. So his best friend, Horatio, says to him, look, I've got a bad feeling about this. Hamlet has a bad feeling about it too. He has a feeling not everything is on the up and up. And his friend Horatio says, you know, you don't have to go through with this. And Hamlet says this to him. First of all, he talks about a feeling of destiny, that he's fulfilling some destiny, which he is, because he's a character in a play. And it's all written out, all ahead of time. There's no way he can get out of ending up in this play the way he's going to end up, which is dead on the stage. So he kind of knows that. So he says, and he's talking about the inevitability of death, that you're going to die sooner or later. It's as true now as it was in 1601. So he says to Horatio, and he's talking about the inevitability of death. It's going to be now or later. And he says to him, if it be not now, 'tis to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it is to come. Hear what I'm telling you? How true is that? You're going to die sooner or later. Not now, it's going to be later. If it's not later, it's going to be now. So he goes out and he walks into his fate and he walks into his destiny. But after he says that, he says, the readiness is all. The readiness is all. Be ready for it. Face the inevitable with dignity, which he does. He dies, not because he wasn't the best swordsman in the court, because he was, maybe the best swordsman in Denmark at that time. But the king has poisoned Laertes' sword, so as soon as he gets a little cut, he's dying, right? So this, I'm thinking of Hamlet now, because Hamlet kind of made me think about the poem that we're going to read today. So the poem we're going to read today, oh, it's over here. It's over here. Here is the poem. And so it has to do with the movie called Out of the Past with Robert Mitchum. Robert Mitchum, let me tell you something. Robert Mitchum was as interesting as any character he played. Here is this guy, he was on the East Coast. He got expelled from middle school. Back then it was junior high, for fighting with the principal. Don't fight with the principal. And then he gets back into school somehow, gets expelled from high school. So now he just hits the road. That's enough schooling for Robert Mitchum. And he starts riding the rails around the country. He starts to get these little jobs, works as a ditch digger for a while. Then he works as a professional boxer for a while. Then he gets arrested for vagrancy, so he's on a chain gang. He escapes from the chain gang. He heads west towards California, where he's got a sister. Works out there as a ghostwriter for an astrologer out in Long Beach. Then he writes a little poetry along the way. Probably not very good poetry, I don't think. Never read any of it myself. Then his sister gets him involved with a theater. He's writing, his poetry turns into some song lyrics that he writes for his sister. So, and she says, yeah, come over and do a little theater in Long Beach. And from there, he starts picking up a few jobs as an extra, just for money, that's all, just to make some bucks. He starts getting some kind of roles. And then, of course, he becomes a major movie star. And maybe the movie that really made him a star was Out of the Past. Now, Out of the Past, he plays a character who says his name is Jeff Bailey. Really, his name isn't Jeff Bailey. He's got another name, but he's just going by the alias Jeff Bailey because of a little bit of history he had with a gangster. When he was a detective, he took on a job that he got from a gangster. The gangster said, look, go get my girlfriend back. She killed somebody and ran away with my 40,000 bucks. I'm not going to hurt her. I just want her back. So he goes out, finds her in Mexico, falls in love with this woman named Kathy. She's bad news, right? Bad news. But he's in really deep. So he runs off with her. Falls in love with a good woman later. It's not fair to say, by the way, I take back what I said in episode number 1. I take that back. The good woman in Out of the Past, she's not an uninteresting woman. She's got a soulful quality to her. She is actually a very interesting woman. He puts the other woman behind her, but it's called Out of the Past, right? So we know. So his past comes, the gangsters come to get him because he double-crossed the main gangster. So he knows he has to go back. He knows he has to face it. He does kind of at the end of the movie. Everybody thinks that he goes off with the really rotten woman named Kathy. She's very pretty. She's very pretty, but her looks aren't going to last, believe me. He goes off. They think they go off. They go off together because he still loves her. Nah, he doesn't. It's so clear. You should watch this movie. You can see that the reason he goes off with her is because he's been convinced that he will ruin the life of the woman he really loves. He knows he's going to die when he goes off with Kathy. And his attitude is just like Hamlet's. If it be not now, 'tis to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. You know what I'm saying? One way or another, death is going to come to him, and he knows it. It's that kind of attitude. That's what I call a cool control. Not that I'd recommend it, but I'm not saying that you should walk into a situation where you're going to die. I'm not saying that. But that cool in the face of calamity, that's intriguing. So David Lehman wrote a poem every day for what year it was. Every day he wrote a poem, and he gave the title, the date that he wrote it on. David Lehman, very well known across the country, especially well known on the east side of the country. He's written many books of poetry. He's also an expert in songwriting of the era. This is called The Perfect Murder, A Study in Detection. He's written about film noir, and he's written about poets who are influenced by film noir. So in one of his daily poems, he wrote about Robert Mitchum. And by the way, he has said that his attraction to film noir started when he was a young man, and the whole world appealed to him. The clothes they wore, the fact that they always knew exactly the right thing to say at the right moment, and you could see how for an adolescent, how appealing that would be, that a circumstance came up, and instead of being awkward and embarrassed and bumbling, you just come out with the smoothest line. And so it presented a world that had an attraction for him. So this is his July 13th poem. Again, the poet is David Lehman. I'm going to miss you, Robert Mitchum, as I make my rounds in lower Manhattan, checking the progress of Joe DiMaggio's 56-game winning streak, the way you did in Farewell, My Lovely. Next to Bogart, you were the best, Philip Marlowe. Smart, too. Getting arrested for marijuana the year I was born was a shrewd career move. Sleepless by instinct, you look like a car mechanic. We're a fighter whose best moment came when he got off the canvas and took another punch. You lost every fight with the woman in the houseboat who sang, "There's a fire down below in my heart." She came out of the past, and now at last you've joined her in some South American beach where escaped convicts dream of going. And I'm walking on 6th Avenue with your groggy voice in my mind, daring the world to surprise you. See, if you have noir cool, you can't be surprised. You're ready for everything. So, here's the only advice I've got for right now. March 2nd. It's March 2nd, 2018. My gosh, I've made it this far. I never thought I would make it this far. Here's my advice. Keep your cool. Good night, ladies. Good night, gentlemen. And remember, look both ways. Watch your back. And don't ever let anybody treat you like you're 2 for a dime.